So it's really lovely to be here and to give a talk on Padmasambhava. I realised that every year since I've been ordained, I've only been ordained 5 years, but I've given a talk on Padmasambhava at Padmasambhava Day or elsewhere. So I feel really lucky to have, it would have felt strange not to given a talk on Padmasambhava, because I kind of really rely on this time of year to really focus myself on Padmasambhava, and Padmasambhava is my yidam, and I practice the Padmasambhava sadhana. So this time of year is really very much about me kind of gathering my thoughts and reflections. So this is a fantastic opportunity for me personally to hear myself in a way say something about my connection to Padmasambhava. So hopefully you enjoy that. And Padmasambhava Day wasn't that long ago, but I want to call us back to a Padmasambhava Day even further back in time, which is Padmasambhava Day in 1979, I think, at the LBC, where Bhante gave an amazing talk. It's a talk that I've been listening to for quite a number of years. He just gives this talk. I think it was an impromptu talk on Padmasambhava at the LBC. I don't even think it's got a title. I think it just says Padmasambhava Day talk if you look it up on Pre-Buddhist Audio. But in that talk, Bhante talks about three things. He talks about lots of things, but the three main things he talks about are the Manu, the Buddha, and the Guru. And so I'm going to just give us a flavour of that, of what that means, and then I'm just going to map it onto the story of Padmasambhava's journey to Tibet. And the theme of this talk really in relationship to us as fathers, I'm not going to kind of shoehorn it in too much, but is about patience, and we need great patience as parents, but also if you are a parent, you have very little time and energy, and you see a lot of people around you with more time and energy than you have because they don't have families, and that can make one impatient. It can even make you feel like you're not good enough, or all of that stuff. So this is the theme of tonight, is about slowing down and having patience. So my title has changed slightly. It's called Total Transformation Takes Time and Something More. So in this talk, Bhante talks about the Manu, the Buddha, and the Guru. So the Manu, you may know what a Manu is. I didn't know what a Manu was until this talk. But a Manu, when Bhante was in India teaching the ex-untouchables, he had a friend. Bhante was doing a lot of teaching. He had a friend who said to Bhante that you're wasting your time with these people. You're wasting your time trying to teach them Dharma. What they need is a Manu. And so a Manu is basically a lawgiver. So how Bhante talks about it and how I've started to think about it is a Manu is somebody who establishes culture, society, education, law. So in a way, it's kind of like the general culture that allows people the freedom, time and energy to be able to practice the Dharma. So the Manu comes before the Buddha. Before any Buddha arrives, there's the Manu. The Manu kind of sets the ground. And Bhante actually thought that was true of the ex-untouchables in the early days. They actually needed more culture and more in a way organization. So you have the Manu, and then you have the Buddha, and the Buddha, we all know who the Buddha is, hopefully, and he gives a very, what Bhante I think calls a general teaching. He gives a teaching to the whole of mankind. It's quite, I think it kind of shocked me to hear Bhante said that it was a general teaching, or I associate general being not good. But Bhante was saying that the Buddha taught, but he taught in the most, in the broadest sense, and he talked to mankind. And then Bhante talks about you need something more. The Buddha isn't enough, which is also something to stop and think about. The Buddha isn't enough. It's not enough to have a Buddha. It's not enough to receive, as we have received the Dharma through this lineage, through time, to receive that Dharma from the Buddha. We need something else. And so Bhante talks about the guru, that you need the guru, and what the guru does is the guru speaks to the individual and teaches the individual. So that's what Padmasambhava represents. He represents the guru principle that comes into your life and tells you what you need to hear. That's essentially who Padmasambhava is. So the Buddha is teaching in a broad sense. The guru or Padmasambhava is teaching in a direct sense to the individual. And in a way, we could look at Bhante. I look at Bhante in that way. You know, I found his Dharma to be very personal to me, and I still do. When I hear Bhante talk or I read Bhante, I feel Bhante's talking to me. I don't feel that way when I read the Dhammapada. I feel like the Buddha is talking to us, and so that's the difference. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about this Padmasambhava's journey to Tibet. So often when we think about Padmasambhava, the story, we'll say, you know, the Dharma was trying to be established in Tibet. They couldn't make it happen because all of the local demons were tearing down the monastery that was built in the day. It'd be torn down at night. And so they called Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava came and sorted everything out, and then that's it. It's quite a dramatic and quick story as it's told. But if you read the Life and Liberation of Padmasambhava, the story is much, much slower. So I want to kind of go into that and slow down the story so that we can see that we actually need to be more patient. So in a way, Padmasambhava's journey to Tibet starts way, way back, in a way outside of time. It starts in another place, in another time, when Manjushri looks down at Tibet and decides that the Dharma is needed there, and sends a shaft of light down into the womb of a Tibetan queen, and implants in some way this baby. And this baby is born. So this prince is born, and the prince's dad, the king, dies when he's at age 13. So already we're 13 years in to this story of Padmasambhava's journey to Tibet. So already it's a long time. And at age 15, Trisong Detsun is made king. And then at age 17, the king starts to think of the Dharma. Then decades pass of the king of Tibet just thinking about the Dharma. And then he starts to introduce the Dharma to his people, starts to teach ethics and I assume kind of like basic teachings. In a way, he becomes a Manu. He becomes someone who establishes a foundation and a culture. And this culture that gets created by Trisong Detsun, the king of Tibet, already at this point, you could say, is 50 years in the making. So we have to really take this approach, you know, generally as Dharma practitioners, but definitely in our family settings and in all settings really, is that we do need a foundation. We do actually need a context to practice in which is hospitable to the Dharma before we can even think about the Buddha and the Guru. So in a way, we need to get our house in order, maybe quite literally, get our house in order, our homes in order. And at this point, decades on, so that he must be, I'm guessing, I don't know, 40 or so, it becomes his religion. That's how it's put in the text. It becomes his religion. And at this point, we move from the kind of Manu period into the Buddha period. So King Trisong Detsun decides that he's going to build a monastery in Tibet. So he's really got a head of steam behind him, spent years, decades thinking about the Dharma, teaching his people ethics, creating culture, being a Manu. And he decides we need a monastery. We actually need to implant the spirit of the Buddha into Tibet. So they start building. They find this area, and they start building. And quite quickly, the demons of the local demons, and maybe even demons further afield, start to sense that there's something going on, and start to gather at night to tear down the monastery. And this goes on, we can imagine, goes on for days, weeks, perhaps it even goes on for years. But again, this really relates back to this sense of resilience and patience generally within the Dharma life. It does seem to take years and years to get going. And this is my kind of 12th year of practicing the Dharma, and it was really only at ordination I felt like I could start to experience the fruits of all of those many, many years of feeling like I was going nowhere. So at this point, something more is needed. The Manu has kind of reached the Manu has done his work. Something more is needed, and that something more, in this case, is the Buddha. So King Tresson needs help. So he sends out his emissaries to go and find, a great teacher, and they go out and they listen to teachers, they listen to people teaching the Dharma. And they find a Bodhisattva abbot called Santarachita. And he must just be truly amazing, absolutely, truly amazing. In a way, he is the Buddha, I think. I think of him as the Buddha, but he's named in the text as a Bodhisattva abbot, Santarachita. He's famed all over the land as being an amazing teacher of the Dharma. So they go back to the king of Tibet and say, like, we think we found somebody who can come here and really implant the Dharma into Tibet, as if that's going to solve the problems of the demons. That's what's quite interesting, that the solution to the demons being there is, well, let's just get better Dharma here, let's get better teaching here, let's get an amazing teacher, let's get a Buddha here. So he sends an invitation and gold dust to the Bodhisattva abbot, Santarachita. And I don't know, gold dust is quite evocative for me, that when something is like gold dust, it's very rare. It gives you this sense of Santarachita, the Bodhisattva abbot, being incredibly rare in his ability to teach Dharma. Santarachita comes, he wows everyone, he arrives and gives teachings and really gets people excited, really gets people going. But still, the demons come. Still, they keep coming. Every evening, they tear down the monastery in apparent disrespect of even this lofty, high teacher, this Bodhisattva abbot, Santarachita. So it's quite clear that something more is needed, that it's not enough in this case to have this great teacher. It's not enough, in Bante's word, to have the Buddha. Santarachita comes and teaches the Dharma in the most general sense to the people, but what he can't do is deal with the demons. He can't deal with the demons. So something more is needed. So Santarachita remembers, or comes to mind, that there is this person out there, that there is this great yogi, there's this great person called Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, and he's really good at dealing with demons. He's really, really good at dealing with demons, and if we get him here, he'll sort it out and all will be well. So they send the emissaries back out to find Guru Padmasambhava. They find him somewhere. I can't imagine he would have been easy to find, but they find him. And they send an invitation to come to Tibet to get rid of these demons so that the monastery can be built, and so Santarachita can get on with teaching. Perhaps Guru Padmasambhava will come and stay and teach as well. So Padmasambhava accepts straight away, yeah, I'll come. So they all walk off together, Padmasambhava and the emissaries, and Padmasambhava is quite slow. he keeps stopping along the road. He keeps spotting demons here, there, and everywhere in little caves or little grottos or hidden away up trees. Keeps spotting them and stops and talks to them and does all kinds of things with them and gives them things to look after. So the emissaries are getting quite impatient. So Padmasambhava says, look, you guys go on and I'll meet you in Tibet. So just tell the king I'm on my way. And it goes on and on. Padmasambhava keeps finding these demons along the way to Tibet. And for every single one, gets to know them. They're listed in the text, The Life and Liberation. They've all got names. And you get a sense he gets to know them. He actually pins them down and really understands what they're about. And particularly, he gives them something to treasure. He gives them something to do. He doesn't destroy them. That's quite interesting. I've always thought Padmasambhava destroys demons. He doesn't do that. He actually converts them to the Dharma, to his work. So you get a sense months go by, and I think it is probably months go by. Padmasambhava still hasn't arrived. So the king sends out the emissaries once more, and they find him and they say, look, are you coming? Are you actually going to get here? And he's like, yeah, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. And this goes backwards and forwards in the story. I think it's 3 times. At some point, the king actually decides to go and find Padmasambhava, or sends a letter of some sort, saying, look, are you going to come or what? Like, are you going to actually get here? And yeah, Padmasambhava arrives. But one of the, so he arrives, and well, we know the rest of the story. You know, he prepares the ground. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I find that so interesting, this part of the story. When you're reading it, it feels like it's months. It feels, in my imagination, it feels like a year. It feels like a year for him to get to Tibet. And he is going. It's not that he's not coming. He is going. But he's got stuff to do along the way. And I wonder so much about what that means for us, for me. And there's something about the wisdom of being able to know that those demons will come. If you don't deal with them, you'll get there, you'll deal with the demons in that locality of Samye where the monastery was being built. But if you don't deal with all the other demons along the way, they're just going to come. So you're just going to be you'll have to do the work somewhere. And it feels like this real wisdom to slow down and to look at demons, to look at the obstacles, problems, whatever we want to call them, of our Dharma life, of our family setting, of our life more generally. And don't try and skip ahead. Don't try and ignore them. Actually, really try and deal with them. And we often think about that. I feel that when in a family setting, still having a relatively young family, there's a tendency to want to kind of smash through it. But there's something about Padmasambhava's wisdom to do the job really, really well and create this sense of really dealing with the situation that you find yourself in. And that does mean accepting some things. So in a way, I talked about this tendency as perhaps young fathers, I don't know whether it's still there for older fathers, but to sort of compare yourself to other brothers in the Dharma who've got much more time and energy than you because they're free and single and all of that stuff. Yeah. So Padmasambhava arrives in Tibet and he gets the job done, but it's kind of not done overnight. He spends a lot of time subduing these demons. He arrives, there are demons there. And what he does is really interesting. He goes to kind of all of the quarters of the area and really starts to sort of set the ground. In a way, he becomes a bit of a manu in a certain sense. He starts to set the ground and he builds temples, and he builds temples for demons and gives them things to protect, a dharma to protect, jewels to protect. Yeah, and then it happens, and you get this sense in the story that just Padmasambhava being there is the difference. In a way, Padmasambhava doesn't do much. He's just sort of there, and everything happens. So it's dealt with in these three lines: King Trisong Detsun, carry out your intention, build a temple, the spirits will help your work. Padma, the enchanter, does not break his word. And that's it. It's kind of, the job is done. And Padmasambhava sticks around for a bit and then just disappears. So yeah, I wanted to read something before I come to a close from Bhante. It's actually lifted from this talk that he gave in 1979, where he reads out from the Life and Liberation descriptions of the Darkinis, descriptions of demons, descriptions of the things that he encountered along the way, not just on the way to Tibet, but within the journey of Padmasambhava's life. He goes to 8 cremation grounds and stays there for years, encounters all kinds of things. But all we need to know is to imagine these demons as the worst possible thing you could physically encounter, really. And so he says that this of them. So these are forces. This is him talking. This is from his talk. These are forces. These are primordial forces, so to speak, within ourselves. These are the forces which have to be subdued, which doesn't mean just crushed, held down by force, but integrated into our conscious attitude, so that our conscious attitude, our conscious being, our conscious personality, if you like, can be enriched, so that your spiritual life isn't just some pale, anemic thing, so that it is glowing, as it were, and throbbing with the energy of the Darkinis and the demons, with the energy of the gods and demons that have been tamed and transformed. So these are the sort of beings that Padmasambhava subdued. So this is what Padmasambhava, this is what the Guru represents. He represents the Dharma itself. He represents Buddhism itself. He represents, if you like, the Buddha himself in this particular aspect of subduer of all these primordial energies and forces within us in the depths of our own unconscious mind, so that they can be integrated with the purer, clearer energies of the spiritual life. So that our spiritual life, as I've said, is not just an anemic and pale and sort of watery thing, but pulsing with life and with energy. We're not to cut ourselves off from these forces, from these energies. We're not to disown them. We're to incorporate them and integrate them, which means, so to speak, subduing them. So that's from Bhante's talk given on Padmasambhava Day in 1979, and kind of urging us to really encounter whatever demons they are. Maybe that's too strong a word for people, but whatever problems we encounter, to really, really meet them head on, and to really look at the energy they contain and convert that, subdue it, integrate it into our life, into our Dharma life. So I think that's where I'll leave it for today.